Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. My name is Chris Cotter. I'm the Director of Housing for the City of Cambridge. We are very pleased to have you join us today on behalf of the city and the Cambridge Affordable Housing Trust. Very happy to share this occasion with you and welcome you to 52 New Street. I want to start by thanking Carl, Nagy, Kirschland, and Justice Art for letting us use the space here to mark this occasion. We're thrilled that this building is nearing completion, 106 new affordable rental units, and are really excited that we can hold the event here and get a preview of the building. And Carl and his team will be offering tours after the program today. This is the newest affordable building built with funding from the Affordable Housing Trust. Just starts putting the final touches on it, and folks will begin moving in here next month. I want to thank the City Council. I see a number of City Councilors here. We're going to hear from the Mayor and the Vice Mayor. Really, the work of the Affordable Housing Trust is underwritten by the support of the City Council. Housing has been a top priority in Cambridge for many years, and the Council has shown that by continually allocating the funds needed to the Affordable Housing Trust to allow the Trust to invest in buildings like this, invest in affordable housing, creation, preservation across the city. So we're really thrilled that we can share this event with the council and reflect their commitment to affordable housing and the work of the trust. Housing affordability has been a top priority of the city for many years, and the council's always responded to that. This report marks the production and the accomplishments of the Affordable Housing Trust over the last 5 years. We're thrilled to share that with you today. Also want to acknowledge members of the Affordable Housing Trust. We have a number of members here today. I see we've got a former managing trustee and city manager, Rich Rossi. I see Jim Stockard, Susan Schlesinger will be speaking. I see Cassandra Robinson. I don't know if other trust members are here, but we'll certainly want to acknowledge you and thank you. So the trust members work with city staff to review and approve funding that brings you buildings like this, investing in affordable housing. And these are the folks that work with us week by week, month by month, making sure that we're asking the right questions, making sure that we're reviewing things in the right way to get to the right decisions on funding requests so that we end up with successes like this. And you'll see in the report the work of the trust and the accomplishments that we're talking about demonstrate the effort that goes into that. So the Affordable Housing Trust is the city board that oversees investment of city funds in affordable housing. Trust was established in 1989 and to date has funded more than 4,200 affordable units across Cambridge. Over the past 5 years, the city has invested more than $180 million in the Affordable Housing Trust. Those funds have allowed the trust to make commitments to affordable housing preservation, creation, and to fund our affordable home ownership programs. At this point, the city is currently allocating more than $40 million a year to the Affordable Housing Trust. And these funds have allowed for a range of successes that you'll see in the report that we're releasing today. Those successes include the completion of Finch Cambridge, 98 new affordable rental units opened 4 years ago, at the time the largest new affordable rental building in Cambridge in more than 4 decades. We also completed the preservation of Fresh Pond Apartments, more than 500 affordable rental units preserved just over 4 years ago. With funding from the trust, working with a private owner and ensuring that affordability is not lost on this affordable resource that's been there for the community for decades and will be there for decades to come. In the past year, we've opened 96 new affordable rental units with supportive services, permanent supportive housing for residents moving on with a history of homelessness. So we're creating a pipeline from shelter and transitional programs into supportive housing. We've also, in the last 5 years, sold more than 70 affordable homes to new home buyers through the city's affordable home ownership programs with funding from the trust. And finally, at this point, our pipeline of new affordable housing is deeper than it ever has been. We have more than 1,000 units currently under development across the city in buildings that will come online and be very similar to what we're looking at here. New affordable rental housing, affordable home ownership housing, preservation of existing affordable housing. So the work continues and only is amplified given the commitment that the city has made to the trust. So I mentioned the work of the City Council and the support from the Council. We're pleased that a number of councilors are here today. I want to introduce Mayor Sumbul Siddiqui, who exemplifies that commitment to affordable housing. Mayor Siddiqui will often attend meetings of the Trust just to stay up to date on the work of the Trust and to share her perspective, so no stranger to the work of the Trust. She's been a leader on the city's Housing Committee, as co-chair of the Housing Committee on 2 occasions, and as mayor has always championed affordable housing and led efforts to both fund the trust and look at other innovative housing policies. So we're pleased that she can join us today and share her thoughts and perspective on the Affordable Housing Trust. Mayor Siddiqui.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chris, for your introduction, and it's just really an honor to be here with you all. I want to acknowledge all my colleagues who are here today, who really, together, we've worked so hard over the years to make sure that this housing is a commitment. So I want to acknowledge former Mayor and Councillor Edie Simmons, I'd like to acknowledge former Mayor and Councillor McGovern. I want to acknowledge current co-chair of the Housing Committee, Councillor Sabrina Wheeler. And we will be hearing from our Vice Mayor shortly. So I just want to say it's so wonderful to be here with so many partners, advocates, and neighbors who care deeply about housing in Cambridge. Today is both a celebration and a reminder of what is possible when a city commits year after year to doing the hard work. Housing is the City Council's top priority. It's an issue we hear about from residents, the issue that determines whether people can stay in Cambridge, and the issue that defines our work together as a council. As this report makes clear, housing affordability is a defining challenge facing our community. And for me and for my colleagues, this work is deeply personal. It's about whether families can remain in their homes, whether seniors can age in place, whether future generations will have the same opportunities that so many of us have had in this city. And during my time as co-chair of the Housing Committee, I saw firsthand how seriously we take this responsibility. The Housing Committee has been a place where we not only name the challenges, but advance real solutions, bringing together residents, advocates, and experts to shape policies that meet the scale of this moment. That work has led to some of the most significant housing policy reforms in our city's history. We passed the Affordable Housing Overlay in 2020. And I want to just say that, in 2018, 2019, when that term, my first term we were working on this, Councillor McGovern, former mayor at that time, had appointed Councillor Simmons and I as co-chairs. And I remember the moment we knew that we didn't have enough votes to pass the overlay. And so that was 2019, and we all got together and said, all right, we're not going to give up on this, but we're going to keep working hard and figure out how we do this. And in 2020, when we were joined by Councillor Sabrina Wheeler, we were able to do this and pass the overlay. But it wasn't all successful at first, and it was years in the making. But I want to acknowledge their efforts in really being true partners and making sure we really never lost sight of what we were there to do. We've strengthened the overlay over time. We've ended exclusionary zoning. We've increased linkage fees. We've strengthened inclusionary housing. And we're always looking at new things as well, new models. And we've backed that up, as you've heard, with real investment. And that our Affordable Housing Trust is how we turn that commitment into action. We've heard that over the past 5 years. It's amazing to see these numbers that we've helped create and preserve more than 900 affordable homes, supported over 1,000 in the pipeline. And importantly, this work is not just about building new housing. It's about preserving the housing we already have. And Chris, you mentioned this, and for me, during this time when I was mayor, this was such a powerful example of being involved in something like the fresh pond preservation, where I grew up. And there were so many residents who were really worried. They were like, okay, will the city step in and help? And these were 504 units that we were able to preserve that were set to expire. And so that moment, I just saw how much the trust cared and just deeply how much impact that we were able to have on these families. It's hundreds of families right here in Cambridge who could stay in their homes with stability and security for years to come. And that's what this work looks like. It's new construction, but it's also protecting our communities. And it's not just units, it's people. And of course, as we heard, we're continuing to invest. We're continuing to build. Here, this project, please take a tour if you haven't. It's amazing, 106 new units. Our first project that was permitted under the overlay shows what is possible when policy and investment align. And as we've heard, we're doing more on expanding permanent supportive housing, creating more family-sized units, and ensuring that seniors and first-time homebuyers have pathways to remain in our city. And finally, we know the work is not finished. This report reminds us that demand continues to grow, wait lists are longer than ever, and new challenges are here. Rising construction costs. There's so much ahead. But that's why our commitment has to really remain strong. I remain deeply committed, and I know my colleagues on the City Council are as well, to making sure and ensuring that Cambridge continues to lead, to keep building, to keep preserving, and to keep pushing forward with urgency and purpose. Because at the end of the day, this is about who gets to call Cambridge home. To the trust members, to the city staff, to the nonprofit partners in the room, to the residents who've shown up and made this work possible, this progress is yours. This report reflects your deep care, your dedication. I'm so proud of what we've all accomplished together and even more committed to what comes next. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Siddiqui. Mayor mentioned the affordable housing overlay, which is a policy that the innovative policy the council approved about 5 years ago. And a lot of the success that we're seeing now in the pipeline that we see looking forward is due both to funding and innovative zoning provision that allows by right permitting for affordable housing and density incentives for all affordable buildings. So really, as the mayor said aptly, a combination of policy, funding, in commitment, really leading to results. I'd like to next introduce Vice Mayor Burhan Azeem. Vice Mayor Azeem is co-chair of the city's housing committee. Has been another strong advocate for housing, both for funding for the Affordable Housing Trust and for innovative policy changes to support housing in the community, including changes and improvements to the affordable housing overlay over the last 5 years, which he has led and supported discussions of as co-chair of the Housing Committee, all while advocating for housing policy and affordability more broadly. So we're very pleased that Vice Mayor Azeem will join us today and share his thoughts on the Affordable Housing Trust. Thank you.
You know, it's nice to have days where everyone is happy and we get to celebrate. If you've been in the fight for affordable housing, you know a lot of our time is spent at community meetings in very difficult conversations. And I feel like for so many of the people I see here today, it's the first time I've seen them with a smile on their face. It's an honor to be here. You know, we're a city of 120,000 people, and as I like to say, at least as many opinions. It's a really hard place to pass policy, to talk about legislation when the world's expert on that field is going to be in the audience and have a correction. But something that I've seen a consensus emerge around has been affordable housing. It's building on the legacy of so many fights that came before us. I know how hard it was to fight to pass the affordable housing overlay the first time around, how it failed, and the 5 councilors who showed up today have always been the strongest 5 fighting for affordable housing each and every time. Both the mayor, but also Mark and Jeevan and Denise have been in incredible amounts of fights and conversations, such that we now get to the place today where the affordable housing overlay failed the first time around, it passed the second time around, and then we had to pass even more amendments again and increase funding and, win fight after fight after fight, such that we get to celebrate today. It's incredible to sit here and say that, there's maybe 50, 100 people in the room who've come and gone, who have been critical to making the affordable housing overlay work. But there's 1,000 families that will get to benefit, right? That's 1,000 homes that we are building right now. And it's, take a second to just imagine what 1,000 people looks like. Not 1,000 people, 1,000 families looks like, right? This is really, really meaningful work. And I think that so often we get stuck in counting units of housing, but it's real families, people who get to benefit from our schools, benefit from living near where they work and having a transit system that gets them around, and people who otherwise would have had a lot more struggle and heartache, and we have gotten the opportunity to directly benefit. And I think that it's moments like these that make all those fights worthwhile. And I think, and I'd also like to say that it's a good example of when a city is focused, it knows its priorities, it's working to make policy changes and push forward, that you can actually do incredible things. The number you see up there is $181 million, which is both an incredible amount of money that has been dedicated by the city manager and his team, and the city council, and has been constantly prioritized by our community. But also, I want to talk about how little money that is, right? That it means that we are basically building 1,000 affordable units at about, $200,000 a unit, right? I know there'll still be a little bit more money coming, and some of it will be sorted out, but that is incredible amounts of efficiency, right? We are building housing, on scale, cheaper than ever. Each unit coming, next and next. We have a huge timeline of units that are being in the pipeline, such that right now the private industry is slowing down. They're there's high interest rates, high tariffs. For all of these reasons, we just can't make housing pencil. And yet the city of Cambridge is not only building units, we have a huge timeline of units yet to come. While the rest of the private industry is slowing down and coming to a halt, Cambridge is plowing ahead, and I think that's something to be incredibly proud of. So I'm starting to see a little bit of long faces, so don't worry, I'll wrap it up. But I just wanted to thank you guys for all coming out here today. It's really, really important, I think, for us to not only stick together through the tough fights and the tough conversations and live up to our values, but also to have some fun and celebrate. And hopefully today will be one of those days. So please enjoy yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Azeem. I'd next like to introduce City Manager Huang. Ian is the managing trustee of the Affordable Housing Trust in addition to the city manager, so he is the one that is making decisions, recommendations, and figuring out how to provide the funding to the trust, so plays a very important role, and also is a key member of the trust, and really the trust has benefited from Ian's leadership over the last few years. Ian has stepped up and continued and expanded the funding that the city has committed to the trust on an annual basis, and really deeply immersed himself in the housing challenges here, regionally and nationally, really weighing in and making the city's voice heard where it can have an impact and make a difference. So thrilled that we're able to ask Ian to share a couple of words on the work of the trust in this moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you all for being here. I'm so grateful to be with you all this morning and just to speak a little bit more about both the last 5 years and what it means for us as a community to see housing as the defining challenge that's facing the city. I really want to echo a lot of what the mayor, Mayor Siddiqui, and Vice Mayor Azeem said. We are, as a community, facing such a crisis. And, not just in Cambridge. I think it's being increasingly acknowledged that the state as a whole, the country as a whole, is struggling with the cost of housing, with the affordability of this basic aspect of living. Every year we do a resident survey, and open-ended, we ask all of our residents, we say, what is the most important issue that the city of Cambridge should focus on? And every year, 40% of people say affordable housing. 40%, when not prompted with any option, say affordable housing is the most important issue. And the second most important issue is usually less than 10%. So there's an enormous gap between our community seeing that housing is the most important thing to the next most important concern. And that really is reflected in, I think, the work that the city is doing, the work that the council is doing. And I've been thinking, well, what does that mean? Like, how do we actually put more flesh around how people experience and feel that? And I really felt like, the Boston Globe did this great article last summer. And the article was, want to understand why the Massachusetts housing market is broken? Look at this one chart. And it's this graph of the price to income ratio. So it's essentially how much does housing cost compared to average household income in our region? And that's the measure of affordability, right? It's what does something cost compared to how much money you have to spend on that thing that's so important. And in 1980, the ratio was 3. So if you wanted to buy a house, what that kind of means is if you were saving really diligently, it would take about 5 to 6 years to save enough money to put down something for a mortgage. And that feels reasonable. That was sort of my parents' generation. And I have maybe enough gray hair not to ask the room sort of which generation you're living in. But today, that ratio in Greater Boston has doubled to over 6. And I ran the numbers for Cambridge as a city, and we are over 10. So if the price to income ratio is 10, that means that it's 10 times, you need more than 10 times your average household income to buy a home. And it means that if you're saving diligently, it will take you 15 to 20 years to have enough for a down payment. That means that the average rent, after even the market has cooled, right now is over $3,000 a month for a 1-bedroom. And that's the challenge that we're talking about. Housing is the defining challenge because, and the mayor said this well, housing is inherently about community. It's the entry point. It's the door into whether you get to be a part of this city. And I think when I look around the room, I see each of us has that connection. We have city councilors that grew up in public housing, that benefited from public housing. My family is one of those stories. My grandparents were on the losing side of the Chinese Civil War. My parents grew up very poor in Taiwan. And when they came to this country, they were poor students, and they actually lived in the Ringe Towers. My dad was there when he was a poor student. He was thrilled to find a place that he could afford. And I didn't even know that until I started this job, and I sort of was talking to my parents about their history. And actually, I didn't even realize this. My parents met in Cambridge, and when they got married, they lived in Central Square. And they lived in what was then a rent-stabilized apartment. I didn't know this until actually this last year because I was helping them clean out their attic, and there was this cardboard box that was falling apart that was covered in dust, and it had an address with Mass Ave on it. And I was like, what is this? And they hadn't told me. It was just, it was sort of like they didn't feel the need to like fill me in on all the history. But we all actually have, I think when I look around this room, we have these stories. And housing is where oftentimes your journey starts, to be part of this incredibly special place. And affordable housing is a release valve. It's a place for people to start to build a life. And that's, I think, what is being strangled today by the way our economy has evolved and the way the housing market has been broken. So I'm grateful to be with you all today because, usually we get together to celebrate projects, and I know Carl's going to talk about this one, which is very special. But we don't always get to stand back and look at how we actually get this work done. And the Affordable Housing Trust has been at the center, and it has been the most powerful tool that we've had to expand, to preserve affordable housing, to ensure that everybody, especially people who are low income, have access to our community and can be part of this city. And this 5-year report really captures this especially incredible period of time where, from a policy perspective, the work that the city council has done, from a budget perspective, we have poured in resources, and we've really seen this take off in terms of the work that we've been able to do and the pipeline we've been able to create. It was 10 years ago So the trust had been created for a long time, was doing really good work. But 10 years ago, the city primarily funded the Affordable Housing Trust through Community Preservation Act. And so this is a state law that allows for additional property tax to be allocated to affordable housing, historical preservation, or open space. And as a community, we've maxed that out. So we're at the full 3%. Not every community's there. And we've maxed out the amount that goes to affordable housing. So 80% of Community Preservation Act goes into the Affordable Housing Trust. And 10 years ago, that was about $10 million a year. 5 years ago, the city began to allocate general fund revenue to the trust. And so in the FY20 budget, trust funding had doubled to about $20 million a year. And shortly after that, I think the city council had been speaking about the priority for expanding funding for affordable housing. And my predecessor, City Manager DePasquale, committed to allocating 25% of building permit revenue to the Affordable Housing Trust. I'm not sure Louis knew building permit revenue was going to go up that quickly in those years. But over those years, trust funding has increased. To when I started, we've been funding the Affordable Housing Trust at over $40 million a year. And so thank you to the council, the previous city manager, and also I just want to recognize previous city manager Rich Rossi, who's here, and has also been part of this journey, a previous chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. And I think as I started, building permit revenue has kind of taken a bit of a nosedive. But we have made a commitment that funding will stay constant. And so it's no longer a commitment of a percentage of building permit revenue to go up and down. We have said this is an important commitment that the city needs to make. We will be funding this every year, and we've maintained that commitment. And so thank you to the council, to the advocates who have been part of our community speaking out, and certainly to leadership that's made this commitment. The scale of what that's allowed us to do is really incredible. We've talked about over the last 5 years, we've created or preserved 900 units of affordable housing, 900 households who are able to be part of our community, who add to the fabric of the city and make Cambridge the diverse and vibrant place that it is. We have also dramatically accelerated purchasing in the market. And so when I started, a lot of what the conversation is how can the city be more assertive as we go out on the market and acquire more land so that we can build affordable housing. And through the resources that have gone into the trust, a little bit of luck in the market, we have purchased in the last 5 years 14 properties. And we now have more than 1,000 units of affordable housing in our development pipeline, which is incredible. And Chris talked to this a little bit, but I really appreciate the work of the trust, community members who speak out and help guide how we think about where this money goes. But this is not just one kind of housing. We have built permanent supportive housing for people coming out of homelessness. We've invested in particular in larger units. And so a lot of what we've done that is different than other communities is we've built a lot of 3-bedroom units so that families can stay in Cambridge. And you can see it in our schools where we actually have a lot of low-income kids in our community who otherwise couldn't afford to be here, but they can because we've created space in our community that's affordable for parents and families to grow their families and to stay in our community and not move out. We've built housing for seniors so they can age in place, and people who are disabled so they can remain in the city that they love, near the people they care about, and have access to the services that they need. And so I'm grateful to be with you all today because also it's an opportunity to recognize what it took to do all of this. It really does start, I would say, with the city council. And thank you to the city councilors who are here. This is Cambridge, and so that's sort of where it begins. And in that political commitment to make the policy changes, to provide the funding for affordable housing, to make it the single biggest issue that we're working on is what has led us here. And I think Vice Mayor Azeem talked really well about the first affordable housing overlay, but that wasn't the only challenging policy that we've enacted in the last 5 years. That was really just the start. And over those years, and many of the counselors in this room were a key part of this, but the affordable housing overlay was strengthened in 2023. So we have a 1.0 and a 2.0, and that's made a tremendous difference for a lot of our affordable developers. We eliminated parking minimums, and that's also changed the economics of how we build housing. That was not an easy vote, and I think it continues to be something that generates a lot of conversation. Commercial developer fees were raised, and that's provided tremendous funding to the Affordable Housing Trust. We actually have some of the highest linkage fees, all of it going into affordable housing to make sure that we're able to build more housing for people who need it. And this, we sort of talked about this a little bit, but the council has also been willing to go into neighborhoods and to engage people about what is happening next door. And I was just talking to Councilor McGovern about a meeting that he had, I think, yesterday. And
Still here.
He's still here. And I think for our partners, many of you have done that. I've been in a lot of those meetings, but it isn't easy because every neighborhood is going to struggle with housing coming up, with increased density. And one of the things that's so special about Cambridge is we've been able to have those conversations. We've been able to have both a little bit of flexibility in how we design buildings and blend them into the neighborhood, but also not lose the fact that we're going to build as many units as we can. And I think that's been a huge piece of how we've been successful. I'm also so thankful to all of the city leaders and staff who have done this work. Many of them are here. Thank you to Chris, who has stewarded the Affordable Housing Trust. Chris has been the steady hand behind the scenes, doing a lot of the work. And maybe this is a good time to embarrass him a little bit, and also just to call out, very recently and for many years, we've had 4 different teams working on housing, reporting up to 3 different departments. And just over a week ago, we reorganized into a unified housing department. And that will report up to Chris. And so congratulations, Chris, on taking on even more work. But I'm so grateful because Chris really understands this world, how to get things done. And I think I was actually just talking to Carl about the piece of affordable housing development. And many of you will laugh a little, but I know that Chris has been a deep partner in just navigating the incredible bureaucracy of how we get these developments through. And we have been able to do that incredibly efficiently, and that's been part of our success. So thank you, Chris, and we're incredibly excited about this next part of the journey. I also want to just recognize the other important people on the housing team, Cassie, Janet, Anna, Christine, Antonia, Laura, Emily, Chase, and Alexis. There's a whole team of people on the city side who make this possible and who have been dedicating not just the 40 hours a week, but even more than that to ensure that these projects go forward. Thank you as well to Annie and Kay and Julie who helped put on this event and who support the team. And just want to recognize, the other folks in the city in community development. Melissa Peters, our Assistant City Manager of Community Development, is here. Sandra Clark, Jen Kyra, who's our new Deputy Assistant Manager, City Manager. And then Julie Wormser, who's our Chief Climate Officer, who's here. So thank you for being here. And I also just want to recognize our housing services team, the work of the Office of the Housing Liaison and the Multi-Service Center, Maura Pensack, Maria Mello, Phoebe West. They are really on the front lines. They're the front door for so many people in our community who are vulnerable. And the work that they're doing on the prevention side is also an incredibly important part of what the city contributes. And so the Affordable Housing Trust is mostly focused on units of housing. How do you preserve these units so they don't go away? How do you build more? but the work that they're doing with tenants, people in market rate apartments who are behind on their rent, providing rental assistance, helping them access programs, is keeping people housed. And I think I'm really excited to see that team working even more closely as we think about how we address permanent supportive housing, how we think about the transitions between people who are unhoused into housing, and how we support people in our housing developments. And I think sort of that whole view where we're thinking about both the development side, but also caring for people who are in housing and serving them better is an incredibly important piece of where we're going. So thank you all as well for the work you're doing every day. And I think Susan will talk about this more, but I just want to recognize that those on the Affordable Housing Trust are playing an incredibly important role. So thank you, Susan. Thank you, Jim. I see Cassandra, one of our newer members, here as well. But thank you for the work that you're doing. And it's not just the monthly meetings. You know, there's a lot of conversations that are happening behind the scenes to vet ideas, to work out the numbers. And it's such a service to our community that you're providing. So thank you all. And finally, you know, thank you to our partners who are here. Sarah Barkan at HRI, Carl, everybody, Margaret and Clara, I see from the Cambridge Housing Authority. And there's other affordable housing developers that work really closely with us. But, you know, one of the messages that I think I want to emphasize is it really takes all of us to make this work. You know, this ecosystem is working now because we've created the underlying policy, we've provided the funding, and we have the staff both within the city, but also within affordable housing developers to get this work done. And you know, if you take one of those pieces out, this stuff doesn't actually happen. We don't get this kind of scale, and we don't get it as quickly. And so what's so exciting about where we are today is the last 5 years have really seen us ramp everything up. And I'm so excited about the work going forward. And there is an incredible amount of challenge that we're facing. You know, I would call out the economics of housing production are incredibly challenging. It is very odd that something is broken where even with housing prices at this incredibly high level, somehow it costs more to produce than you can sell housing for. It doesn't really make any sense. And that's something that we're really wrestling with as a city, like talking to developers, talking to economists, trying to understand what's happened in our economy that's made this whole thing break down. And that's a conversation that we all need to have because, you know, when we think about the affordable housing side, it's incredibly efficient in terms of how many city dollars we're putting in, but that total development cost is now getting over $1 million per unit. And I don't know how long we can kind of sustain that. And I think we're gonna have to address that. Production is a huge challenge, not just on the affordable side, but when we look out across the market, there has to be more housing production, more housing supply in Cambridge and Somerville, regionally across the state. You know, when we sort of look out across how we actually bend the curve of housing prices, there has to be some supply component. And how we think about getting the market to work just a little bit better is an enormous question. And so I think there's so much work that we have left to do. But these last 5 years shows that we can get things done. And I kind of look out at national politics in something that I was kind of thinking about in terms of the work that we've done in housing. You know, national politics is broken right now. And it's broken, I think, for two reasons. One is there's become this incredible concentration of power where single people get to make decisions without any checks and balances. And the second problem is national politics is broken because there's been a complete inability to find consensus. You know, we're having these political fights where there's a political benefit to the fight, and somehow, when we look nationally, there's not an interest in solutions. The solutions are there. You know, to many of the problems that we're debating nationally, the solutions are there, but nobody's willing to make a hard choice to go to their coalition and say, this is the consensus that we can agree on and how we should move forward. And, you know, the one thing that we've been able to do in Cambridge that's incredibly special is we've been able to find that consensus. there is a shared structure for how we make decisions. We've been able to make hard decisions, but we've been able to keep moving forward and tackle these really incredibly hard problems. And so I see that reflected in the last 5 years on affordable housing. I'm excited about the work that we're doing on housing going forward. And I'm just so grateful for everybody in this room, for the work that you're doing, and for the results that I think we are producing for people who can stay and live and be part of our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ian. I want to next introduce Susan Slasinger. Susan is one of our longest-serving members of the Trust. She is an expert in affordable housing development finance. She's past president of the Life Initiative, where she oversaw investment of hundreds of millions of dollars across the state in affordable housing and economic development initiatives. And we're very lucky to have her on as a member of the Trust. And as Ian said, there's a lot of work that the Trust members do advising staff, making sure that we're asking the right questions, making sure that when we're bringing a request to the Trust, it's ready. And Susan is on the team of folks that we rely on to make sure that we are getting into the detail before we're making commitments. So really appreciative of her work with us over many years, and pleased that she'll share her thoughts on the Trust with us this morning. Susan.
Thank you, Chris. And it's like everybody, for me, an incredible pleasure to be here today. I see the work in a long historical context, and it's just really thrilling to be here and see you all here and look at all the numbers that we're gonna that we produced over the years. But I'm here really to talk specifically about the role of the Affordable Housing Trust. I think sometimes in Cambridge we don't appreciate how unique our infrastructure is, how unique our approach to different problems, and affordable housing being one of the key issues that we need to deal with are. The Trust is really a special entity, and it has really three main goals. Other things, but three main roles that we play. The first is to act as like a traditional loan fund. We make loans. We underwrite the financial feasibility of proposals that come into the city. We look at them as a traditional financial institution does. Does it make sense? Is this a strong team of developers who can produce an outcome that we agree with? Can they leverage funds from the state and the federal government? Are the costs in line with what we see? So a real rigorous analysis of is this a viable project? But secondly, and unlike a traditional loan fund, we look at what is the public benefit of the proposals that are brought to the Trust. And that is equally, if not more important than the financial feasibility. Because we have been entrusted with ensuring that city funds go to the right kind of projects at the right time. So we're looking for benefits like, are we producing the maximum number of units that we can for low and moderate income people across the city? Are we doing it in the most efficient way? We really don't look at projects anymore that don't have long-term permanent affordability. That's like, you don't pass unless that's there. And we also look at where is the need in the community right now? And I'm going to talk a little bit about how that's changed over time. But we think, as other people have said today, that the city is about the people who live in it. And so we feel that we're building and ensuring the diversity of our community by the work that we do. And that's really foremost in our minds as we look at projects and through the process. How do we do it? Well, we're proud that we do it a little differently, again, than the traditional loan fund. We, from the beginning, flexible. We work with our tremendous not-for-profit developers and for-profit developers in a way around flexible terms, flexible timing. We don't have loan products that you would see that you have to fit into. So we really try to tailor our work to producing units rather than it being a bureaucratic situation for people. We're very patient capital. We're often the first money in a deal and the last money out of the deal. And we're opportunistic. That is, we look for where, at this moment, where are the best deals that we can get? Where's the best bang for our buck, both in public benefits and in terms of fiscal stuff? And we can move very quickly, which is key to getting deals done in an environment where there's a hot market, or even this kind of market. And that's really important. So that's sort of a core thing that we do. And I think sometimes, there are a lot of numbers related to affordable housing. And it's tedious work in certain respects. I mean, I know some amongst us really love that part of it. But I mean, if the numbers don't work, it doesn't work. And we're playing with money that really isn't ours. So we really have to take that fiscal approach responsibility seriously, and we do. The second role is that we take a strategic point of view about what's going on in the market and where are the opportunities that we can create affordable housing, where is the need at this moment. And you can sort of see in the report, I can break it into roughly 3 sort of chunks of strategies that we had. In the beginning, we were working in a pre and slightly post-rent control environment, and most of the affordable housing that we were working with or funding were acquisition and rehab of existing properties. The market, you could buy those properties at the time, there was money to convert them, and we did a lot of that kind of work. The plus of that is that housing is scattered throughout the neighborhoods. The minus was that they're not huge numbers of units that we can pick up with that strategy alone. The second sort of tranche of projects people have talked about it were the preservation deals. These are the expiring use properties that had 30-year, 40-year mortgages, Jim, 30-year mortgages that were coming due from the federal government. And if we didn't step in, those buildings would be lost because they were primarily at that time owned by private owners. And across the city, 808 Memorial Drive, Linwood Court, Ridge Towers, I mean, just a plethora, thousands of units would have been lost if the city hadn't stepped in, along with obviously the state and federal government as well. But those people we had no housing for them. They would have been out on the street. And so that was really a concentrated effort that we made at that time to understand the problem and really move towards the financing, the technical work that went along with that. And finally, and to our city council friends, you might not always love this part of this role, but we do see ourselves, and were originally set up to give policy advice to the city council on affordable housing matters. When one of the reasons, Mr. McGovern there, one of the reasons I think it's important is we don't have to balance some of the other things that the council city manager has to balance. We bring a pure pro-affordable housing perspective. We know that we're not stupid. We know there's a world out there, but if we aren't advocating for what we think is the absolute best from a policy point of view, then I don't think we're doing anybody any good. We have a trust that's made up of people. Some are housing professionals, some are advocates, some are people who've lived in public housing. We have a lot of different points of view, which makes it a very dynamic kind of organization. So the advice that you get from us really comes from a range of opinions. Some of the issues that we've weighed in over the years, clearly incentive zoning and the kind of what that incentive zoning rate may be, how CPA money would be used in the beginning. And, as everybody has said, we supported strongly the affordable housing overlay. It's an incredible piece of policy. It's made, the impact it's made has been really mind-blowing in terms of both the quantity and the quality of housing that's been produced. So now I'm just about to wrap up, but I want to talk about what's changed in the 36 years I've been involved in affordable housing here, and what hasn't. And what hasn't changed are our goals. The trust remains committed to many of the things that are laid out in the original documents that set up the trust. That is, we're looking for the maximum number of low and moderate income affordable units that are high quality and in all parts of our city. We're looking for long-term affordability in all the projects that we fund. We want to see the maximum leverage of outside city funds in our deals so we could create more affordable housing. And we want to provide a variety of types of housing, which people have talked about, rental housing, home ownership, and we want to provide it to different populations in need. We've consistently felt in the trust that our emphasis should be on family housing because it's virtually impossible for a family below 80% of median to live in Cambridge. With one-bedroom rents at $3,000 a month, if you're a 4 or 5 person family, you can't afford to live here if you don't live in affordable housing. So we're building for what we want the future population to look like, in a sense. We've also emphasized supportive housing for a bunch of different populations, ranging from the unhoused to people with other kinds of needs in the community. We've done that since the beginning, and we continue to do that. We have been also able to reach out to seniors. We help Member Manor. We've done a variety of things, but our core goals are pretty much the same as they've always been. And our approach has really been pretty consistent too, in terms of working within a really strong and vibrant partnership structure here. We have premier nonprofit housing developers here, and the Housing Authority is one of the best, if not the best, in the country. We're really fortunate about that. And we have tremendous support from the city manager and the city council, so that's been a fabulous thing. Some of the changes, again, meant much, much more in the way of city resources, and I did happen to print out the 1993 first trust report here. And in the first year of this first 4 years of the trust's activity, we funded 9 projects, 54 family units, 119 SROs, that would have been the Y, and 10 beds, because we were looking at beds at the time, for supported housing. We spent $611,000 on that deal. And the big news in the 1993 report was the city manager was going to give $1 million to capitalize the Affordable Housing Trust. So we come a long way, baby. So I think I just wrap it up there. Thanks everybody so much. I feel like any one of you out here could have given this speech. And let's look forward to doing this in a few more years. Take care.
Thank you, Susan. Really interesting to see how things change over time. Susan mentioned leveraging, and one of the things that we do look at is housing developers and providers accessing other resources, and some of the big partners that we've seen over the years that are steadfastly there funding the developments that you see in the report here are our state partners. So the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, Mass Development, Mass Housing Partnership, the quasi agencies at the state level that invest in housing are critical partners and part and parcel to this building and others that you see in the report there that we're celebrating today. I want to next introduce Carl Nagy-Kirschland, and again, thank him for sharing the space today, but we wanted to ask Carl to give us some perspective on the trust from the perspective of an affordable housing provider. Justice Start has been working with the trust from the beginning. Susan mentioned the first few projects. I think one of the first approvals that was made was to a Justice Start development, I think on Howard Street. This building that we're in today, 106 new units, this is the largest building that we will have done with Justice Start, but certainly Justice Start has created hundreds of affordable units with funding from the trust over the years, and I'm happy to say that in addition to the 106 here today, there are many more in the pipeline, so more to come. Carl.
Thank you very much, Chris. I want to just kind of reiterate a theme that a few others have mentioned, that we need a celebration. There's a lot that's broken with how we're conducting business as a nation, and I think celebrating our partnership and all we've gotten done, it made me think of I think it's a Barney Frank quote where he says, "Government is what we call it when we do things together," and the reputation for government has been sullied in these last several months. But I think this is an example of us doing things together with really tremendous results. I think the other thing I'll say is that, each project is a slog, and I want to give hats off to Noah Sawyer, Madeline Lee, our architects from Rhodey, and the whole team that brought this project, dragged it across the finish line. So give them a round of applause. So all the more reason why it's really helpful to sort of take a retrospective look and to say, wow, over these last 5 years, look at all that we've gotten done. Each day may be interminable, but at the end of it, in the 5 years, you say, wow, it really was worth it, with literally thousands of units being developed. Just to start is, proud to be among what I agree and would consider a very strong network of affordable housing developers, mission-focused, strong, prolific. One of the reasons we're prolific is because we work in this sort of ecosystem that supports us, and that feeds on itself. We like to say that we build homes, careers, and futures, and it's deliberate that we start with homes because that's really the linchpin. That's sort of the foundation for all the other things that we do around career training and financial opportunity coaching. It's hard to build a career or a future without a stable place to live, and the Trust has been our partner in that endeavor to build stable homes. Let me just say a few words about the building. We will do tours afterwards so we can get into some of the details. But this is the first project permitted under, someone else mentioned it earlier, under the Affordable Housing Overlay, which is really a game-changing policy change that fills out what I would say is sort of an all-of-the-above housing strategy that the city has adopted. The Trust is at the center of that, but making it easier for us to get projects permitted has been key. We acquired this, and so this building is a really fitting place to celebrate this because so many of those aspects and so many of those policy initiatives are in play here. It's 106 apartments, 80% of which are family-sized, including 22 three-bedroom apartments, which are precious in Cambridge. It's built to the Passive House standard, so it's the most energy efficient, sort of highest standard for energy efficiency. So a benefit to the planet, but also to the people who are going to live here and will benefit from low utility bills. And it's well located. I think in a sense, anything in Cambridge, maybe I'm biased, but I think anything in Cambridge is well located. But this in particular, we're near the school, we're near, there are views of and great access to Fresh Pond, the shopping plaza around the corner, Just to Start, and our programs are about a half a mile away from here. The Trust, so what did the Trust have to do with the project? We have about $18 million in city funds. I don't know all the configuration of what was community development block grant and what was linkage, but about $18 million, about $170,000 a unit, so sort of conforms with Burhan's comment about the per unit cost, and that we've leveraged 3 or 4 times that in state and private resources, so that's important to say. The other thing that's really critical is not only that those subsidy dollars themselves were critical to making the project work, the money came early. So 6 years ago, we had an opportunity to acquire this site if we moved quickly. For the first time in my career, the Affordable Housing Trust and everything that exists in Cambridge sets us up to move even faster than market rate developers. It's always been sort of a hindrance to community development that we can't move quickly enough. But in Cambridge, it's really the opposite. In this case, our ability to close quickly allowed us to purchase the property for a mere $9 million. Now, that sounds like a lot of money for an acre of land, but when you can build 106 apartments on it, that's critical. This is one of several projects that the trust has supported. We have about, if you include our home ownership units, probably about 880 affordable projects that we've developed over the years. And I think it's safe to say that everything we've developed since the trust has been in place was supported by the Affordable Housing Trust funds. And I'd say the city understands, this isn't rocket science. Other people have referred to this. It's really more a question of will than it is, do we have the ideas and the resources to accomplish this. Really, affordable housing requires 3 or 4 things. One is a site, so having a place to build it, and the trust has been instrumental in not only this acquisition, but in the acquisition of 2 Leslie parking lots and also a site in Central Square that we're going to be developing. And I think Homeowners Rehab would say the same thing, the ability to tap the trust to secure a site, even if we don't know 100% what we're going to do with it, we know enough to know that this is a valuable opportunity and we're not going to miss it. The second thing is permitting. Getting a site permitted can be a big hassle. The Affordable Housing Overlay has created a very predictable, risk-free or nearly risk-free and very expeditious process to make that happen. And then finally, you need other resources. So the city's ability to come in and step in and make a project feasible allows us to compete for very competitive state resources. And the other thing I want to sort of highlight, I think Ian said it and I want to second it. I mean, one of the reasons we have this sort of strong ecosystem of mission-focused developers, the Housing Authority, Homeowners Rehab, Just to Start, and then several private developers. I see Sean here from Capstone and others, is that it's such a great place to do business. It's like fertile ground that has allowed each of us to build strong capacity and to be very productive and effective. And round it goes. We build more. The community support for it continues, and we're able to do more. So in closing, I want to sort of zoom out and just say what you're going to see here today is impressive, in terms of how we're setting people up to live, quality lives in a well-located, affordable project. But extrapolate that out to the 24 or 24 projects that are currently either funded or under construction or have been recently funded, and you get a sense about the magnitude of the impact we're having. And then I want to just kind of zoom in and just say, what does this mean for each family that lives in this housing? As we say, we build homes, careers, and futures, and there's no better place to do those 3 things than in Cambridge. Anytime we are able to situate and stably house a family in Cambridge, the sky's the limit in terms of what's possible because of our strong economy, excellent city services, good schools, mass transit, and all the things that are on display here today. We're really changing lives. So remember that when you look at the 1,000+ units that we're developing over these last 5 years. So thanks for being here. We're really honored to be part of this network and this system that has produced these results, and really happy to host everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, Carl. I want to also just acknowledge some of the other housing providers that are here, starting with the Cambridge Housing Authority, Margaret Moran, Clara Fraden. Preview of coming attractions, we are working with CHA using trust funds to rebuild a federal public housing site. 175 obsolete public housing units have been demolished, and CHA is building 278 new affordable rental units. So we're looking forward to the first buildings coming online there in a few months. I want to also acknowledge HRI, as Ian mentioned, another local partner here. We're also joined by some of the other housing providers that have used trust funds in the report. Preservation of Affordable Housing, Capstone Communities, Hope Real Estate, Shotgun Companies. So really, it takes a team. It takes a lot of folks looking at housing in different ways, and partnerships that we see with developers, with service providers to make the housing not only affordable and accessible, but there and there for residents for decades to come. I want to take a moment just to reiterate the thanks and share my thanks for the city staff that work on trust-funded programs and projects, starting with our housing development team led by Cassie Arno. So thanks to Cassie. Janet Haynes, Christine Yu, Alexis Turgeon. I'd like to thank our homeownership team that works on our more than 600 affordable homes in the city that have been created with city assistance. So Anna Dolmatch leads that team. And thanks to Antonia Finley, Lara Plaskin, Emily Solomon, and Chase Kate Bensky. I'd like to next introduce Delphine Masongo, who is a resident living in housing that was funded by the Trust. Delphine has graciously agreed to share some of her story today. We're very honored that she can join us today. I met Delphine after she moved into an affordable rental building that was built with funding from the Trust, and just was immediately drawn to her. Just the light that she shares, her presence is infectious. I had the pleasure of serving on a nonprofit board with Delphine for several years, and her presence just uplifted the group, made such a difference. And so we're just thrilled that she can join us today. She really does represent someone who's giving back. She continues to be a board member of Homeowners Rehab and shares her story, and thankfully has agreed to share her a little bit today and to grace us with her presence. So thank you, Delphine.
Good morning, everyone. I am so honored to be here today, more than honored. I'm a product of everything that you have said here today. I wouldn't be here if not from the help of Cambridge Housing Authority. So thank you so much for letting me be who I am today. In this bag, I'm carrying a folder that I named Housing. In here, I have all my leases. One that I even paid $2 rent. And so this is where my story starts. I came to the US in 2008 from Kenya. And shortly I found myself homeless. But by the help of a social worker, I was able to find my first home at the YWCA. I remember my unit was 314. Was at the corner, one of the smallest. But that was my home for 8 months. And then I upgraded to St. Paul's residence, an SRO unit number 402 in Harvard Square. And I stayed there for 4 years. In the meantime, I was waiting for a housing voucher. I didn't know about vouchers, but I was working with a caseworker. And in 2012, let me put my folder down. In 2012, I got a housing voucher from Cambridge Housing Authority. And I used this voucher to find an apartment in Somerville, 1-bedroom apartment. I lived there for 8 years, very comfortably. And all that time, I was doing something. But we'll get to that. I'll give my story of how I am here today. So during the pandemic, I got a call that I had qualified for a 1-bedroom apartment in Finch. I was very comfortable where I was. I was skeptical, am I going to move again? And in this pandemic time, my boyfriend told me, let's go and see what this is about. But I quickly changed my mind when I saw what Finch looked like. Beautiful apartments with modern appliances, elevator, dishwasher, community room, laundry room, all the good stuff. So I agreed to take my apartment. And that's where I am today. And during this time, 2008 up to now, I was able to be gainfully employed. I was a volunteer in so many places. I am a mother, by the way. I left my son in Kenya, who was 6 years at that time. So I wanted to work hard and make sure I get him here with me. It took me a very long time, but he's here now. He came last summer. So that lifted a heavy load, and I can do anything else now. So what affordable housing really has done for me did not just give me shelter, but took me as a whole person and molded me to what I am today. So the affordable housing program has connected me, and I'm speaking as an individual. Hopefully my story is going to be identical to someone else. So with this voucher in the house, there is another person who is helping you. The residential coordinators, the property managers, and other staff. Most of them are on site. So if you have an issue with like maybe some medical issue, food, so we are connected to food pantries. We have a food pantry within Finch. I've been connected to filing taxes at CEOC. I do my taxes for free every year. In the meantime, I'm working in Cambridge Center for Adult Education. It's very comforting to come home to a place which you call your own. Unlike before, where I used to, ask someone, can I stay with you today? Can you do me this favor? Then you can stay, maybe clean my house or take care of my child. But now you guys have helped me to have a home I can call my own. And with the affordable housing, we're able to get rental assistance. Sometimes you lose your income because of maybe sickness or loss of a job or some unforeseen circumstances. So we are able to be connected to rental assistance. And technology assistant, we recently got somebody from HRI to come in the building once a month to help people with technology, computers and whatever. Internet, we get people come in and help us with internet connections. We really are spoiled, I can say. They don't just give you the voucher or the shelter, they hold you. And for me, I feel like I've been given wings to fly. I'm ready to. So. Also, I want to mention that during this time, I also did the Bridge to College program at Community Learning Center, and my son is also taking the same. I never really graduated to go to any college, but I took a lot of short courses that were offered through Department of Public Health, because I worked with AIDS Action for almost 7-8 years until we were laid off. I volunteered at Boston Medical Center, and I did a training also funded by CDC, which was called Women Involved in Life Learning from Other Women. I can list everything that everything that I have done within these years, but the point is you are given an opportunity to grow, to build yourself, and build others. I came to a point where I worked as a peer support. I worked helping people find housing, do housing applications, housing searches. I remember my first time I went to look for an apartment, I dressed the part. This was called Quincy Residentials. It was beautiful. And I thought, how do I present myself to get this place? I didn't have social security number, nothing. But I had a trench coat, nice shoes, and I went. I was welcomed. I was shown the building. But this guy asked me, do you have credit? I said, credit? No, I don't like credit. Because I left my country with a debt I owed Barclays Bank. I said, I don't want credit. He said, no, in this country, you need credit. There's bank credit, there's store credit, and all that. He taught me well. He said, so where did you park your car? I said, I said, it rained today, so I took the bus. No car. So you see. So I got strength, courage, confidence because of what you have given me. So I'm going to finish by saying Cambridge has molded me. Cambridge has given me wings. I met my fiancé in Cambridge. I'm getting married in the summer. And I will still be open to helping people. I do help people in my country every year or every 2 years. I send a barrel of items to help children and other vulnerable people. I have a lot to say. I cannot say it all today, but thank you so much for listening.